Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
Welcome, listeners, to my paranormal closet where all the magic happens. Today's guest hails from Massachusetts. She's a double-visioned medium who is a renowned and award-winning tested and endorsed evidential psychic, spirit medium, afterlife research medium, author, healer, and spiritual teacher. She has been interviewed by the List TV show, CBS, NBC, Fox News, iHeartRadio, and other media outlets for her work. Join me in welcoming Lauren Robbins.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So glad you could join me. Well, why don't we start with you telling me how you first knew you were special and gifted?
It started at the age of 2 years old, and I was very sickly with bronchitis and pneumonia that I coughed so much that I lost a muscle in my left eye and I guess it's my grandmother that I never met. She had the same problem with a lazy eye. So they say that can be hereditary. So maybe it was just, I don't know. But anyway, that changed the whole game for me because I developed permanent double vision because of it, because I had to wear a patch on my right eye that was not lazy and focused with my left eye to see. And once I stopped wearing the patch, I had permanent double vision, and I was able to see into the spiritual world with my left eye, and with my right eye, the physical world. So I was seeing ghosts and spirits at a very, very young age.
I've never heard of that before. That is so unique.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Oh, my goodness. I can't imagine how you're able to actually function when you're having those two worlds going on at the same time. My goodness.
And it still happens.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you and I are a little similar in that we suppressed our gifts. I too, at an early age, was having premonitions, and then one of them was very traumatic, and that kind of shut me down for a very long time. And it wasn't until I was 30 when it was all reawakened, and now I'm still learning and trying to find myself, so to speak. Can you tell me why it is that you suppressed yours, and how and what happened when you were finally reawakened?
That's a great question, actually. Nobody ever asked me that, but I think, it's probably you yourself, you have experiences. And a lot of children do that are more like spiritually maybe open, because we are all kind of open when we're born because the top of our head is soft at birth, and that's our crown area. So that's where we receive as mediums, but get psychic insight. And I feel like some kids have it more than others, and they just keep expanding. And it's typically because they went through something traumatic, I believe, when they were younger, that shifted them somehow. So anyway, to answer your question was I remember around 2 or 3 years old and still having the pajama feet on and going down to my parents in the living room at night and saying, there's people in my room, there's spirit in our room. I didn't know what they were, but I just said people. And, of course, being brought up Catholic, which I am Catholic, it was just something that was not discussed. It was not like, it's not like we are raised about the spiritual world. So my mom was, very sweet. Come on, honey, go back to bed. It's just your imagination. And so I was really alone with it. Like a lot of people that are in this with us, we're really alone with it. We can't talk about it. And I remember being at church very young and saying, God, why do I have this? Like, why am I seeing all these things? Why do I have the problems with my eyes? Because I was really terribly bullied and and more on. But and then I just wanted to be normal. I just really didn't want to deal with it. And I still kept on having experiences. And I just said, it's tough with my eyes as it is, having double vision, seeing, two blackboards, having a hard time reading sentences that, what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm going to just ignore it as much as I can and concentrate getting into college, because I just really wanted to make sure I had a college degree, and it was tougher for me to read than anybody else. And so I just kind of let it go. And fast forward, finished school and got into administration work and worked for NASA for like a long time as a meeting planner. And I met my first husband there. And when we got married, a lot of things were happening again. Like I was getting some spiritual insight on him. I knew he was going to come back into the United States before he did and live here. I knew we were going to get married. I knew it was going to happen after we got married. Anyway, he would validate some things, but he started, saying, don't talk about that stuff. Don't talk about that stuff. There is no scientific evidence on it. And here I'm in my 30s and 40s. And so finally, it was just Spirit actually guided me to get out of the marriage, believe it or not, and said, he's not good for you because he was suppressing me. And there were a lot of issues. I don't want to get into it. It's personal. But once I left the marriage and, took my son out of it with me to move on, like this big, huge awakening happened. And I was already a Reiki person, being drawn into it like 10 years prior for, a lot of health issues and feeling drawn to the natural arts. That when I was going through the divorce, I heard in my head, finish your Reiki training. You need this. You need to help other people. So I got into the training, and it was honestly, I was now in my mid 40s, early 40s, and I opened a practice. I became a Reiki master teacher. I started working on people, and everything was like, whoom, I'm working on something, doing the hands-on healing. I'm getting, this was happening in their life. And they're like, yeah. I said, do you want me to give you this message? And they're saying, yeah. Or, I'm sorry, I see your loved one, coming through. Or you have an angel around you because they're sick. And so they were validating it. And it just was like, wow, that's it. So I went on, I talked to my priest about it, and then I decided I was actually invited by somebody to be tested and endorsed. I never heard of it. So I went through that, and then I looked for other platforms to do it because I was like, if I'm going to offer this to people, I really need to know, number one, that I really can do this, and number two, that it's really legit. And I'll be honest, to this day, it's still like blows my mind that I can do this. I don't know how, but I just do.
Well, like you, I had the mom that said the same thing. It was just a dream. Don't worry about it. And then that's what made it even more traumatic when that one dream happened. And here I was, I knew about it and then didn't do anything about it. And so for a very long time, I blamed myself. And I find that when I interview people now, that those people that grew up with nurturing families, and I don't blame my mom for that. I certainly don't. That was just, she's Catholic also. And so she just didn't think about those things and didn't, really, I don't know if she believed them or not, but we never talked about it. So for her to say, it was just a dream, was just an ordinary response. And I speak to a lot of people, and they say when they came from those nurturing households, it was like an embrace. And so they were able to nurture their gifts and at an earlier age so that they're actually more equipped and enhanced as their life progresses. So
that's
I get
so
that
very
whole
true.
thing.
And you just gave me an idea. I should probably teach people to do that and say, if they're saying I'm seeing Papa or I'm seeing my dad or I'm seeing the dog, just don't make them suppress it. Just be, tell me more, because they are a lot of times seeing until they get older. Then maybe that gift is going away because all kids are kind of open anyway, and the ones that keep it really still open or still have that experience for the rest of their life. Just at least talk to somebody about it so you're not alone, because you do suppress it.
Sure. And I've always found that little voice that's inside of me, I've always just looked at it as, I've never really referred to it as, I probably more than often call it the guardian angel in me, and not really technically thinking of it as a guardian angel, but I listen to that gut feeling. And now, as I'm learning, I'm finding more and more that voice is what I'm supposed to be listening to. That's the voice that's telling me those things that I'm supposed to know and supposed to share with other people and get out into the open. And it also makes sense to me. And I don't know if you can agree on this or not, but when I'm everybody's therapist, everybody comes to talk to me, and for whatever reason, I'm able to just spew this advice out to them freely and without problem, because I know deep inside that what it is that I'm telling them is what they're meant to hear. So is that kind of what your ability is? Is that how you explain it as well? Is that similar?
It is very similar. And, the thing is when you're a light worker, whether you're a psychic or medium or healer, we're all light workers. We're all working with good divine. And, you are doing the same thing, and you're basically reawakening. And we find what happens is people are very drawn to us, and sometimes they don't even know why. I mean, people come to me before I even open my business and dump on me at work, because I was like that go-to person, I should say. And it's just that they're drawn to our light. And so we do absorb a lot. And, knowing the way that we know, we can also take it on. So we just kind of, I'm not even sure if I just answered your question, but could you repeat
No, you
that?
did. That's okay. You can keep on going because it just adds to the story, and I can come up with other questions to what you're saying. So
Right. No, but I'm just saying, like, it's true though. Really, honestly, we, people are drawn to our light, and so we do really kind of become therapists. And I'll be quite honest with you, like, I have, on my website, the psychic and the mediumship and the Reiki. But when I do a session, the person has to choose what they want as the primary focus. But it's funny, they could say, I want just psychic. So I want, life path stuff. I want to see what's going to happen down the road. And I don't want to know anything, no matter what they want for a session. I don't want to know anything because I get that information from their highest spirit or their loved ones or their angels or what have you. But I roll in everything else too. I use it as the primary focus, but my healing comes in, as a Reiki master teacher when I'm talking to them, and the, and so, or the teacher will come in when I have to tell them something that's really important that they need to know so they can practice maybe being a little bit more open. And what happens is, therapeutically, they say to me, oh my God, this is better than a therapist. And I'm not trying to undermine a therapist, but what it is that I'm getting to their core, and I'm getting to their spirit, and I'm getting to these deep-rooted issues, but I'm also reading them and saying, well, if you stay here, this is what's going to happen. If you, get a divorce, this is what's going to happen. Or, this is what happened with your loved one, but this is how you need to heal, and things like that. So it is, I think, all of us are considered therapists, even though we are not particularly trained in that. We are doing it in a spiritual way.
how exactly do you read somebody? For example, do you see the person and see something about them and immediately get a message you need to share with them? Or for a random person, let's just say, like we just met, for example, or when you're actually doing a person's reading, how is it that you go about doing that?
Okay, well, what happens is that whether they're in my office or the phone or Zoom, I connect to them different ways. So if they're in my office, it's just, my connection to them spiritually, energetically. If it's over the phone, their voice, I connect to their voice and their spirit through their voice. And in Zoom, it's the same thing as like seeing them and connecting to them energetically. I close my eyes a lot. So people think, oh, you're reading expressions off a person's face, but it doesn't work like that with me because I close my eyes a lot to concentrate with clairvoyant messages and to see them. See different spirit things or things about their life. But what happens is that it's just an energetic exchange, and then it depends on what kind of spiritual being I'm connecting to, because there's more than one type. So like if it's psychic, it's going to be their higher self. It's who they are as a person, their spirit and their soul. So I'm reading their energy about that. It's all pertain to them and their individuality. If I'm reading their loved one, I'm making a link through them to the other side to see who is there for them. It's linked to them in the physical world. That's a different type of spirit. If it's something like that's healing and I'm trying to help that person move on after a trauma and they're on my Reiki table, I'm channeling Reiki from the divine, but then I'm also a lot of times bringing the angelic realm, which is real, by the way. And I am, channeling angelic healing for them, and maybe even clearing off something from stagnant energy if they're blocked. So there's different sources that I use, and it depends on what the situation is. And it's very interesting to me because I never get bored with my job because everybody's unique and every situation is unique. And my big thing is, don't tell me anything when you walk in the door except for what you want for a session, because I do everything cold style, because I don't want to know. And what's interesting, I say, bring a list of questions. And at the end, I said, do you have any questions? They said, nope, everything I had written down, you just answered. And it's cool that way, because I'm like, most of it, sometimes there's still some questions, but it's really fascinating to me that the spirit, I do it that way because it's so important that person trusts my work and trusts what I'm saying to them. And I don't know anything about them. Like, I will tell you, 90% of my clients use fake names. When they're registered.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I don't book them. I have an assistant now because I'm just so busy that books my clients that I don't know anything from anything. I just see their name. I got to click on the link. And sometimes at the end, they're like, oh, my name was really Mary or whatever. It's like, because they didn't want me to like look them up or whatever. Like, I've got all the time of the day to do that. But anywho. They want it to be fresh. They want it to be real. And that's the whole healing part of it too.
Well, because there's a lot of people out there that are not legitimate and take advantage of people. And so it's their way of protecting themselves, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And, and rightfully so, because honestly, if I was going to spend a lot of money on a reading, I'd want to know everything about that person. I'd want to know how they operate. So. Yeah.
Have you ever been on the street and randomly picked up something about somebody that you felt compelled to go and stop and say, hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I'd like to tell you I can see this spirit around you, or what have you?
No, but
no.
I'll tell you, I was under contract. This is many years ago. It'll be 9 years ago this year. But in 2013, I was under contract for a television show as a medium, and it was going to be similar to the Long Island medium. And so, they were still trying to decide if they were going to, do the show and have one based in Massachusetts and all of that. And I was dating my husband at the time, and he's a firefighter, and he's really funny. And anyway, getting back to the story, I was like, oh boy, I'm going to have to stop practicing, because this is one of the things that they wanted me to do, like Teresa Caputo kind of thing, go up to people randomly in a bakery or whatever. Oh my God, you did. And I felt kind of weird about doing that, because it's just kind of not me. And and then they even wanted me to go into like the firehouse where my husband is and be like, read some of the guys. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's like, that's his workplace. And anyway, so I was like, where am I going to practice? So I started doing it when we went out to eat. So now we're like in Plymouth, Mass, which is this beautiful place. And, we're going out to restaurants on the weekend, and I'd have a martini, and then I'd be like grabbing the person next to me, like, it's okay. Your husband's a jerk. I know you're going through a divorce and you have 3 kids, and your middle son, Johnny, he's going to be okay. And he's going to need some deep therapy because his father was very abusive to them. They're looking at me like, who are you? Like, where the hell did you come from?
I know this.
And I'm like, psychic me, like, oh my God. And like, they start crying, and I'm like, oh wow, and so I was doing this a lot. And then sometimes people were like, oh, well, can I buy you another drink? Can I buy you another martini? Will you read me for a martini? And I'm like, okay, so I'm reading them. But after a while, it actually felt uncomfortable for me, because I'm like, this is really not who I am. It's not what I'm servicing this for. And I actually told I think that's one of the reasons that the thing didn't ever happen, but whatever. I told him I didn't feel comfortable doing some of that. But at one point, my husband, who was famous in his department for creating acronyms and nicknames for everybody, he grabs my arm and he said, no more. Eventually, he realized it really wasn't my thing. He knows me very well. I can say he's great with support with what I do, and very protective. He gets very upset if people question me or anything like that, despite what he does for work. And he just said, like, this is not you. And then he grabbed my arm one night and he said, no, are you eyeing? And I said, well, what does this mean? He said, reading under the influence. He didn't want me to, read people out, and because like they started to cry, or they were like asking questions, or they'd surround us like, what else? But it wasn't really me. Like the whole time, it was a great experience, actually, because it was like a wake up call. It slapped me in the head. And literally, the TV show didn't work, and I was devastated. And I said, why, God? Why didn't this happen? Because I was like a single mom at the time, and I was really broke. And it would have been nice to just like sayonara to my day job, have like the life. But then I heard, well, it wasn't your time, and this is not what I gave you the gifts for. Your gifts are meant to serve people and help people, not be commercialized. And so it hurt for a couple of years, but then I learned from it and just grew in other ways. And now I've had some other opportunities lately. So I'm very, very happy about those.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. You still get your hopes up, because that recently happened to me. We had an opportunity, and we did a sizzle reel, and we really thought we were going to get picked up, because there are no Lady Ghostbuster shows out there. And I'm thinking, every show that's out there, like, we'd be a really good show. And we were very excited about that. And you get your hopes up, and you keep on thinking about all that you can do with what you do. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh man, why? And then I have to keep on reminding myself, everything happens for a reason. And when I speak to other people that are sensitives or mediums or astrologists, because I talk to so many people all the time, they keep on telling me, something's going to happen. Don't worry about it. People have even targeted a certain year and a certain month for me. So I'm kind of like hopeful.
I'll be happy to give you some insight if you need it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love that. So I understand that you had a trauma happen to you in 2011 and 2012, and then everything came together for you in 2013. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was just very traumatic, very, very complicated divorce. And it was just a battle. He was not letting it go. And it was very, very bad. I can't get into details because I don't want him to come after me, but it was not good. And I was just trying to save my son in a lot of ways, emotionally. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I got the divorce and leave my marriage. So I made that choice, and he didn't do well with that. And he fought me. And just everything he did, like he just kept fighting me. He wore me down. I ended up having a TIA stroke, temporary brain stroke. I ended up having, like, they found a mass in my abdominal area. And then I found out that despite everything that we did in court and I having a lawyer that fought for me, this new judge comes on board and just says, oh, your son can go live with his dad. And he didn't want to go live with his dad. And it was very traumatic for me because I thought I was going to have a breakdown. I did everything I could to, like, kind of protect him and do what I needed to do for many different reasons. It's not like my ex was a rapist or anything like that, but just we had a lot of different, I should say, background. He was foreigner and I'm American, and we just had a lot of different ways of raising and thoughts. And there was always a lot of back and forth. We're like oil and water. And I was trying to do the right thing for my son. And so it was very traumatic because I was like, I don't want to live. I mean, I literally want to die. I'm walking by my son's room. I had him alone for 5 years, raising him by myself, and bawling my eyes out. And I wanted to die. And then I moved in with my mom because I would have been homeless because I lost my son. I lost my house. I lost everything overnight.
So you didn't even, you weren't able to even have him as a co-parent? Like, no?
Well, we did, but he got primary to live with him because we didn't agree on things, because I had primary for 5 years and he fought me for primary because there was a lot of things with visitations and everything. And the judge, this brand new judge, came on board and she felt so bad for him. And she's like, oh, okay, you can have him for high school. So anyway, it threw me off. My son was just devastated. Then he got moved away. And so, like,
don't they ever ask the children that?
Well, they moved away an hour, but thank God it was near my workplace where I worked in Cambridge. So at least I could pick him up on the weekends, and I could go up, like, after every Wednesday. I saw him after work. Actually, today's a Wednesday, but I'd pick him up after work and we'd go out to eat and things like that. But it was very wearing on me. And ironically, my niece is the one that passed. She ended up passing away a few months later, but she's the one that recommended the lawyer's office that I used. And she felt responsible because this all happened. I said, it has nothing to do with you. I guess God has a plan for me. I don't know what it is, but I was going through a lot of being a single mom thing and wearing myself down from commuting and doing the whole thing. And I was just crying on the couch, and my niece was, like, not in a good place. And so I was trying to help her. And my mother was just like, Lauren, pick yourself up, throw yourself in your business. She said, you always wanted to do that. You've always wanted to spend more time on it. She's like, I know you're grieving, but you have so much to give. Go help other people right now so you can heal yourself. And that's kind of like the words I needed to hear to kind of pull myself out. And then 2 months later, my niece died of an overdose. So,
oh my goodness,
and she
I'm
was
so sorry to hear that.
Very close with my son. Her name was Kaylin, and I was very close with her. She was like my closest niece and my nieces and nephews. And it was just one thing after another. But before she died, she said, I'll always be there for you, Auntie. I'll always be there for your son. I'm not going to say his name. I'll always be there for you. And I had just broken up with somebody too on top of all of that. And she said, I'll always be there for you. And literally a couple months after her passing, and exactly the month after her birthday was August 8th, I met my husband I have now on September 8th. And it's a long story, but anyway, he is like my best friend. He is very protective. He's a good person. He pulled me out of all of this bad stuff because I was so much of a mess when I met him. But he was a mess too because he was going through a divorce. So it's like we found each other and just said, we'll take one day at a time. But most guys would be like, oh, that's odd that your son would be living with your dad. What's the history with that? He never questioned me. He trusted me, and he saw everything. And, basically, he saw how everything felt into place. And he also saw, like, a lot that I had been telling him through communications with my son, and my son repeating certain things like that were happening, and that it was just a wrong thing. And I took probably $100,000 of my money trying to fight for him for years. Trying to get him back. But then he became an adult. So now he moved back with us, and then he moved back out. Anyway, long story short is that changed my life. And then right after that, I had that contract, and that contract fell through. So I'm like, God, how much more crap can I take? Why am I having all these lessons? But it built me to where I am now through all those hardships, is what I'm trying to say.
Since your niece is passing, have you reconnected with her?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
That's
all
great.
the time.
That's wonderful.
She is actually one of the people that inspired me to finish writing my book, Who Are You? Are You a Psychic Medium or Other Spiritual Worker? And she also inspired me to write this class that is copyrighted, and I teach it like every 3 or 4 times a year. It's called Until We Meet Again, and it's a class about how to make connections and build your skills to make connections to your loved ones in spirit. It's a very different kind of mediumship course. It's not like, okay, go read somebody else and see who's around for them. It's how to increase their spiritual ability. Like people, like anybody that has nothing, like is getting no messages whatsoever, how to get from A to Z. And at the end of the course, they can hear them, they can feel them, they have experiences with them to heal. So she channeled a lot of that to me when I was recovering from a surgery, and basically said, you got to get this out here. And she gave me the exercises to put in the class.
And do you do this class in your office, or do you do it online and Zoom, or how do you go about doing that?
I've done it all ways, but because of COVID last few years, I find that the online platform works the best, like for Zoom. And I've also recorded all the content in the class, and I haven't put it all out yet, but it will be available probably in the month or 2 on my online platforms that people can take on their own when they want to and listen to all like the audios and the recordings. And it really does help, but I feel like having it with the live too is also helpful, because I go over the exercises with people and make sure they know what they're doing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Going back to what you mentioned earlier, that you're a Catholic and that you were concerned a little bit about your gifts and you spoke to your priest. I know I've spoken to several people that have been in that situations where they're Catholic or a Christian and they have these gifts and they were afraid they were going against something that they shouldn't be doing. And I know that over the years, churches and religions have shunned and frowned upon this sort of thing. But I've learned also over the years that there's a lot of stuff that we really don't know about. There's a lot of things that are in the Bible that are very, very focused on mediumship and that sort of thing, but it doesn't come right out and say it. And so I'm pleased when I hear that pastors and priests and people of the church are more accepting, because they know that you're doing something that's good. This is a gift that should be allowed to help others as opposed to shut down.
Right. And that was actually during that time period too. It was around after my niece passed. I actually saw that she was going to pass, and I tried to prevent it. I had her come to my office, and I did Reiki on her, and I was working with her and like channeling information. And I told her that she needs to change and she needs to get some help and things like that. And I saw the number 111, which is an angel number. And then she got in trouble and she went to rehab, and her room number was 111 at the rehab. And so, but that was sort of, she came out, and I just said, don't go out during this time period for so many weeks, because I have this horrible feeling. Please just promise me you'll stay in with your mom. And she was back with her parents. And I said, don't go out till after like into July. Don't go out before that time. You're not strong enough. I have this feeling, please. And she trusted me, but she ended up going out with her friends, and then she did drugs again and she overdosed. And so it was troubling me so much, because I've actually literally lost friendships over my abilities. It's very difficult for me, because I know I'm serving so many people. I have people like, oh my God, thank you for saving me, or thank you for like listening to me when I was going to kill myself or whatever. But then you get the people that, oh, you work for God and you work for the devil. And, I had a childhood friend that literally started cutting me out of invitations to family things, because she believed that I was working for the devil. And every time I talked to her, she talked about Jesus. And I was like, you know me since we're 5 years old. Seriously. Okay, maybe you don't believe in it or you don't understand it, but you don't judge people. That's actually the biggest sin, is to judge somebody, right?
Exactly.
It was then, like, after she passed and after her services, that I went to the church, the priest in my church, and I said, I got to talk to you. And he said, okay. And I said, listen, I knew my niece was going to pass. I tried to save her. I've saved other people that have come to me that wanted to commit suicide or overdose. And I talked to them and I told them what they needed to do. And they could call me in the middle of the night, and they did. And I said, I just want to know, I know I've got this, but am I supposed to repeat it? Am I supposed to talk about this? I mean, am I going to go to hell? Like, literally, I've got it. What do I do? Like, do I just shut it, just ignore it? Or what should I do? And he told me that I should help people. And then the words that changed my life forever were, and this was 2012 after she died, he said, not all mediums work for God, but you do.
Right.
And so in the Bible, they do put mediumship in there because it is a very fine line between good and evil. Very good fine line. And so they don't want people to fool around with it. They don't want people to practice it. But what do you do when you have it? You're supposed to just shut it in a door, and if it just keeps coming back. I'm not sitting there doing seances, or I'm not doing weird stuff. Yeah, I like paranormal because I'm intrigued by it, and I've had a lot of paranormal stories, and I do that too. I'm an expert in that, but I do my work because I really need to help people, and I can't turn that away. Like my husband couldn't turn away his career as a firefighter, and he can't turn around people he has to help, and neither can I. And so what? I've got a different title than you are. It doesn't mean that you're any better or any worse than I am. We're both meant to serve. So,
did you say that you're an expert in the paranormal as well?
Yes.
How so? Can you explain?
Well, a lot of it has to do with my experiences as a young child. And then I'd say before the age of 10, I was very able, even younger than that, I was able to differentiate, not by just seeing them, but how I felt if it was a ghost or if it was a demon. And throughout my whole life, I've been able to differentiate what kind of spiritual form that I'm working with. And I've worked with paranormal teams that I never met, that I used to read them online, and they'd be literally in a house and doing an investigation. And there was a paranormal team called Syracuse in Syracuse in Syracuse, New York. And I'm going back maybe 10 years ago, and I met this person online, and we were talking. Ironically, he was also a firefighter. He led the team, and I talked to these people over the phone, and he was very intrigued by some of the stuff I was telling him. And so they would call me on an investigation. Now, I don't see anything. I'm not in the house, nothing. And I'm saying, go to the back far room of the house on the corner of the right-hand side. You're going to pick up paranormal activity there. And they'd go in with their equipment, and the activity would go off. And I'd say there's a guy named Jason, or I think it was Jason or Justin, and he died in a fire in 1795. The house was on fire, and there was another person that died, I think his father or something. I said, do the research. Then they'd look it up, they'd do the research, and they got information from their meters and everything, and it matched. Now, I'm reading these paranormal people from thousands of miles away or hundreds of miles away, and you have to ask me how I'm able to do that. And I've done a lot of investigations. They respond to me. Ghosts respond to me quite a bit through my meters. I can hear them in my head, but it also confirms things through my meters. I have some things I posted on my new YouTube channel where I'm literally talking to them. And they're like, there was one a few weeks ago, and I said, don't come into my house. I was walking my dog. One followed me home from the trail behind our house. I said, do you understand? And it said, understand. Okay. All right. So there you go. But they respond to me because I'm treating them with respect. And I just get a lot of response when I'm doing paranormal as well. So it's just, I know it, I feel it, I understand it. And there's no credentials behind it. It's just my experience and having had a lot of things. And I also can clear people that have negative attachments. And I know when people are possessed. I've worked on that too. And I've sent them to different places. So it's
was this something, all of this, is this just something that you knew you had, or have you taken classes to nurture it, or it's just been there?
It's always something that I knew. And as I got older, I was able to hone into it. And it was part of that factor of good and evil, and in knowing, and then I became very careful with myself, what I'll do for investigations. And I've helped paranormal teams, and I've said to people, don't go into this particular home because there's a demon in it, and this one's it's going to attack one of these people, investigators on your team. And sure enough, they'd call me the next day and say, he was scratched. What do we do now? And I would see it ahead of time this was going to happen. So it was just very interesting because I just know it, just like I know psychic, I know mediumship. The paranormal is a different extension of ourselves as like mediums. We're sensitive to not just the physical world, like as an empath, but it's in my book actually. When I say my book has a little subject about sensitives, we are very sensitive to the spiritual world, and we understand, and we can feel when it's really bad, like feel nauseous, it's demonic. When I don't feel nauseous and I feel like it's light, I know it's a ghost. And then they're going to tell me how many they are. And then a lot of times I'll see them in my mind's eye or where they are, and I'll get the information on my equipment to match.
Yeah, you're enlightening me right now, because I call the feeling a foofy feeling. It's my foofy feeling. And I can walk into a building and I can feel if something's good or if it's bad, but I've never associated something with a demon. But now that you're saying this to me, I remember one time my husband and I were looking for a house for an investment, and went into this home, and I immediately just got this not good feeling about it. And then, of course, we get onto the second floor and there's a pentagram painted on the wall. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be in this house. And I remember going in the basement and feeling nauseous. So now you've just taught me something, because I was feeling really nauseous and with that foofy feeling, but not a good feeling. So I'm thinking not just bad ghosts, I'm thinking demon maybe, because of all of that other stuff going on.
Your body will shift. Your body will shift. And I actually trained people in Reiki and kind of like a whole paranormal team on this, because they're like, I want to be more sensitive to it. And I'm like, so I trained them in Reiki because it kind of opened them up. And I said, this is how you're going to feel if you experience this. And this is how you're going to feel if you experience that. So truthfully, yes, if you get very, very nauseous, or have like a metal taste in your mouth or some weird taste in your mouth, or you feel very uneasy, you're shifting from not a ghost form, but that's a demonic form. And if that stays with you and does not go away, that's a demonic form. Because even when I've read people, I did a paranormal reading over Zoom because they wanted me to go to this place in Mass. And because of COVID, I don't want to go to people's houses right now. So I did it over Zoom. And I'm telling the guy, I go, you're literally possessed right now with a demon. And he's like, oh, I'm talking to ghosts. And I said, that's not a ghost. It's a demon. I feel very nauseous when I'm talking to you. It was attacking him. It was attacking him sexually. And like ghosts don't do it.
My.
And there's a different thing of how they act and how they feel and what they do to be able to. I should actually teach a class on it. I always say, I got so many things I want to teach. But
there you go. Write a note to yourself. To yourself. Put it on your list.
I could go on forever about paranormal because I found it.
At my age, I got to write everything down. I got to write these little notes to myself. My husband yells at me because I got notes all over the place. I said, but that's something I got to do. But I have to have that note so I don't forget.
Exactly.
Well, you've had some spectacular opportunities. You've worked with celebrities, I understand.
Yes. Can't say some of the names because they are clients. And then I will be on another television show, and I can't say the name of it because I'm under it's an episode, but it's a well-known established show where I read 2 celebrities and as a psychic medium, and I didn't know anything about the show. I just literally, my poor husband, I could tell you he's the greatest guy in the world, because I got contacted like 24 hours beforehand, and it was one of these opportunities, and I was like running down like with a cold, and I just got checked for COVID to make sure I didn't have it, and all of a sudden this producer contacts me, and she's like, hey, can you come to this undisclosed location outside of Mass and be here Saturday at 11? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I called my husband. He was supposed to work. It's September 11th. And I'm like, can you take that off? Because I need you to drive me because I need to rest because this is like a big deal. And because I wasn't feeling great. But anyway, so I read 2 people that have been on the show, and they are celebrities. But I also have a lot of celebrity clients. I have actresses that I read for all the time. And I can't say their names because it's private. I've read for producers. I've read for several celebrities. Some are like authors and some are television shows. And then I also read for Cody Crane, which he's on a paranormal podcast, and he's been on Lock and Key, and that was through their podcast, Lock and Key, and also Ghosts. And then these are going to be these other celebrities coming out, but I can't talk about it because they don't want anybody to know about what's going on. So I had to do like a complete cold reading. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to wear. It's like in the middle of September. All my stuff's in the attic, and I'm like, I got to be on the mountains, and I'm like, I can't even talk about it. But I was like ripping from my closet, trying to find stuff to wear. We drive up there, and I said to my husband, I'm like, we got to go to bed at 9. And he's like, oh, he wanted to like a couple drinks at night. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is like, I'm on, like, and I don't feel great. And I got to go in there and have all these cameras on me, and I can't stink. I've got to be really good, because if I stink, then
I've ruined I've ruined the opportunity. Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. It's probably one of the best ones yet. So those, like, I can't say the name of the, I wish I could say them, because eventually maybe I can when some of the things come out, if they let me, like this one that I just did. And I'm also just got filmed, the documentary's coming out for the Lady of the Dunes, and I can't talk about that. That had some paranormal stuff to do with it too.
Is that the one that's the unsolved Massachusetts murder case, the Lady of the Dunes? Is that what that is?
Yes. So it's a 1974 case, and it's been unsolved until hopefully now. And what happened was I got contacted by a producer in March last year, 2021. And he said, listen, I've got a couple mediums. I'd like you to come on board. And he kind of tested me a bit, and we talked about things. He said, you have to be on the location to read. And I said, no, I can read anywhere. But he says, listen, I'd like you to come down in April and film. and everybody's going to be different places, and we weren't meant to meet each other. I mean, I know of a couple of them. I've heard of them, but one of them I've heard of, the other ones I haven't. But we never met each other, didn't discuss the case or whatever. But we all had different places to go to see if we could pick up things from her. And it's already been had the free screening, but it will be out online eventually for people to find. It's called The Lady of the Dunes 2022 documentary. Mm-hmm. And you can find it on the IMBD page because it's actually out there right now online. And so what happened was we had to go down and go different locations, but I ended up really channeling her. She showed me, and some of this is going to be in the documentary and some is not, because they had 20 people in this film from all different backgrounds. And I can't say too much about it, but it was very interesting how they did it. And they actually had my husband come in on board, and he is not one that likes the limelight. I felt bad for him, but I was telling the producer, I said, the way that her body was laid, my husband looked at that picture and he's like, there's no way she would have been killed there. I've seen a lot of dead bodies in my work and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden he says, can I talk to your husband on the phone? I'm like, okay. And he puts him on the phone, and next thing he's like, hey, I'd like you to film too. Would you say that? And he's like, he's looking at me like, shit. My friend, she's like, oh no, you might want to break that out. He's like, oh no. And there was something about ties to Boston. And he's like, and I told the producer, he grew up in Boston. So he was like, how much do you know about Boston? Oh, do I know Boston? I know Boston. I grew up in Boston. I walked through this area and that area. So the producer was like, oh, you're all completely in on the film. So anyway, he got filmed for his expertise. I got filmed as a medium in 3 locations, and I channeled the Lady of the Dunes. She told me initials her name. She also showed me through clairvoyance her end of her life. Literally, she was not murdered in that scene. She showed me where she was murdered, and I can't say the information because maybe we can talk later on again, because I'm going to be doing a behind the scenes thing, because some of it won't be in the film, and it's hard to now 50 years later go back and get all this evidence when things are washed away. But she literally showed me where she was brought, showed me the area, showed me the trees, and it was very distinct. And she basically said, I was brought here. I thought it was literally, she thought something was happening because they pulled off, and then she told me what happened to her from A to Z, and some of it obviously matches what's going on, but there were different details and what happened, how she was starting to get killed, and then they thought she was basically gone, and she woke up when they were still trying to do things to her. So anyway, she showed me this area, and what happened when I was channeling her, and then she also channeled other things to me about people that were involved that she knew, and I have to be very careful not to say it because it's one of those things that it ties in a lot with Boston. That's all I'm going to say. And then at one point she cut me off and said, I don't want you talking about that anymore. I want to protect you. So she told me not to talk about it anymore. And she said, nope, we're not going to go there. And I channeled other people that were involved in the case at the time that are now deceased and got their opinion. So it was really interesting because some of the things that I had said and some of the things that another medium said, and several of the mediums, because we'd never talked, it kind of matched. It was kind of cool. It was very interesting. And he had a lot of different, the producers had a lot of different characters in there, real people, obviously, that were involved in the case, that knew things about the case and knew things about the former chief of police that was trying to solve this case for 30 years. But the interesting part, what I wanted to get to, is after she showed me this whole area and these trees, now I'm done filming and I'm ready to go home, and I'm in the dune area where her body was found, and I grabbed some grass on the bottom of where she would have been found, or moved at one point because I felt like she was moved several times. And I grabbed this dry grass and also some weeds, and I made a bouquet, and I said, listen, I am not going to forget about you. I promise you, no matter what, I'm going to trust working with you to get more information, because I want you to get a name. I want to make sure we get you a name no matter what happens, with this film, because we don't know. I don't know if it's going to be open-ended. I don't know. I mean, I have an idea what he's going to do, but I don't know if it's going to be open-ended where people are going to have to guess who she is kind of thing. I don't know yet. I'm assuming, but don't want to go there. And I'm not going to forget about you no matter what, because I want to do some other things for her down the road and honor her still. And I'm not going to say what they are. But so I grabbed these weeds, and it's like her DNA was in those weeds at one point. So I leave. I'm going through the dunes, getting back to my car with all the film crew, and I go back to this B&B where they let me stay over, and I did a little paranormal investigation there, and then I had a meter going, and all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, she's still with me. I'm talking to the guy. I go, the Lady of the Dunes is still with me, and all of a sudden she said road, and then she said mad, and then she's saying some other things. I said to the guy, I said, sorry, I got to leave. I know she's trying to direct me to something. I know she is. So I get in my car, I'm driving home to my town in Mansfield, and I call my husband. I say, note to myself, I'm tired. Don't forget to look for the specific area that she told me about. And so I have my Bluetooth on and I'm driving back, and all of a sudden the line dropped in my car. The Bluetooth just got disconnected, and I look over and there is that area that she had told me about. And it was very specific, very specific. And basically, and then I pulled over. I'm like, oh my God, this looks exact. It was very unique. And then there was a road, and I went down that road, and basically she literally led me to where she was murdered. And I will tell you, I felt it. My meters were off. I found some other things that were in that area. I contacted the producer and I took a picture and I said, you're not going to believe what I just found, what I had told you about. And I said, are you still around? Is the camera crew around? And he's like, yep. So they came back and they filmed me in that area. But some of that footage apparently was lost. And so I don't know if that's going to be in there, but I have some stuff that I took too. And between myself and somebody else that took pictures, we might be able to do something else, like a behind the scenes addition to that after that comes out. So it was very interesting because she has been so connected to me ever since that point. And I went back and did an impromptu visit last week in Provincetown, back to that area again. Same thing. Sickness, not demonic sickness. Sickness, there's a difference. I can feel sickness like when somebody was raped or murdered or something like that. It's a different nauseousness. It's not to the core. It's just something's wrong. There's a lot of stuff that I unearthed in that area originally last year with different things she showed me and all these signs that like tied together. So some paranormal was kind of involved and I didn't expect it, but it was like, she goes, all right, you said you're going to help me. So here we go, girl. On your way home, I'm going to detour you. I'm going to make you stay there another 3 or 4 hours till you figure out a bunch of stuff. And I took pictures, and those pictures are going to come out later. Yep. So she wants help.
To the listening audience, tune in because it's to be continued.
Oh, absolutely, because it is amazing. And I'm planning on doing an event where it's going to be online for people that live in Mass or don't live in Mass and want to like listen about it. And I'm going to be sharing, talking about it, probably even bringing her into the whole thing, the event. I don't want to say too much because I don't want anybody else that's a medium to kind of get that idea, but I have some things that I want to share, some behind the scene pictures. It's really interesting and it's very real because all she wants to do is just be helped. I don't care about the fame with it. I mean, it's a documentary. It's not like it's going to be on CBS. I think it's going to be online and available. There's a free screening that's going to be down the Cape in Provincetown. I'm very proud of being involved. It's more, I want to make sure that we get that name and I want to make sure that we get what she needs after all these years because I feel like her whole family is deceased now and nobody ever looked for her all these years. So it's very sad. Yeah.
Give her the acknowledgement that she deserves.
Because she was crying to me and she made me channel it. She said, I just want people to know who I am. That's all I want. That's all I want is I just want people to know who I am. And I was bawling because that's all she wanted.
And that's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Well, you're an author. Can you tell us about your book?
Sure. So I have a book. Well, it came out a year or two ago. It was right around COVID time when it came out, but it's called Who Are You? Are you a psychic, medium, or other spiritual worker? And I wrote the book. It's actually my second book. My first book has not been finished yet, but this was really needed because I have a lot of clients like you. You know, you have some gifts. You've had stuff that was going on, Eleanor. But when people come to me and say, I had these, I'll pick up, oh, you're gifted. You're a psychic or you're a medium or this. And they're like, well, what does that exactly mean? I said, you're having these experiences. Because I can tell in sessions too if somebody's got something going on. Anywho, I was thinking my whole life, I found out into my 30s that I was all of these things. Okay, I was an empath. I'm a psychic. I'm a medium. I'm an angel worker. I'm a sensitive. And I'm also a healer. And they are very different from each other. They kind of come into play together and integrate in many ways, but a lot of people don't know exactly who they are. So when I started having all these messages coming to me when I was doing the Reiki session, I'm like, am I a psychic or what am I, medium? What is the difference? I actually tried to take some classes to first for validations, but second, really understand it. And I found that nobody really ever understood it. I mean, explained it for teachers. And so I'm like, I really got to write this book because I'm going to use my perspective of how I channel it, how I receive it, what spiritual form is giving that to me. So people can say, oh, that sounds like me. I'm having those same experiences. And then I give them a few exercises at the end, questions they have to ask to connect to that source to see if they can answer them. And if they can, that means they have that connection going. So it's more to determine what type of being, spiritual worker you you are. So you don't take a bunch of classes that you shouldn't take. So you know to confirm that for yourself and say, okay, I'm not crazy. I really am a psychic, or I really am a medium. And these things are, and now I can embrace it or not talk about it with people that are going to make fun of it. Or I can go and decide I want to get into that work and help people. So the basis of the book is really like a small teaching book to help people to decide to say, okay, I really have this, and this is how I channel it. This is how I receive it. This is a little bit different than what I typically, maybe I'm a psychic and an empath, by looking through all those things to be able to differentiate each one. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So please go ahead and tell the listeners how they can get your book and how they can reach out to you and connect with you.
Sure. They can get my book on Amazon. It's called Who Are You? Are You a Psychic, Medium, or Other Spiritual Worker? And it's just on Amazon right now. And people can go to my website and they can get a copy. It's like the first version. There's a couple things I caught and I didn't like it, but I'll sign it and send it out. If people want to order that, they can. But everybody can find me online. I've kind of have the same platform along the board, Medium Lauren Robbins. So if you look up Medium Lauren Robbins, you'll get to my Facebook page, you'll get to my Instagram page, and you'll get to my website, because I have them all together like Medium Lauren Robbins to make it easier for people to find me.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And be able to connect and find out about your classes that you're offering, just in case anybody out there is interested in doing that.
Yes, absolutely. So I offer private sessions, and office or remote phone or Zoom, but I also do offer spiritual teaching. And like the other night, I had a medium connection group, which was great. It was just people coming in. Some people I've already taught, other people that were brand new, to see if they could make a link to their loved ones on the other side, and went really well, and people loved it. And I always kind of give feedback, because I feel like people need to get that feedback to know if they're doing things correctly. So I do medium events once a month, and I try to do training once a month or every other month or so in some kind of topic.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation today and learning about you and all the opportunities that are out there. I appreciate you giving me your time.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate this too. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do another one where I can kind of catch up with you about some other things with the Lady of the Dunes.
Absolutely. I would enjoy that. Wonderful. I'll reach out to you for that.
Thank you so much.
Ghostly listeners, you can follow me on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, where there are links to my books and video updates and photographs from all the Lady Ghostbuster investigations. Also, you can sign up or level up on my Author Eleanor Wagner Patreon program. That's Patreon, where you will find special bonus opportunities only available to its patrons, such as one-on-ones with me and co-hosting opportunities on episodes of Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast. Thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.